Hello my dear friends and welcome to my channel. Don't forget to make yourself a cup of coffee with snacks if you want, because today we have very interesting stories, and one of them is a story about a woman who thinks OP should babysit her child, no matter what plans she has. Please subscribe if you haven't and I hope you'll enjoy it. Okay, this happened when I was about 20 years old and I had already been living on my own for about 2 years at this point. I was talking to a good friend of mine, let's call her E, telling he about how I was looking into finding a new apartment that was a better distance from college and work, maybe something a little cheaper too. She kinda perked up and eventually brought up the idea that we get a place together. We were both great friends, we liked the same food, music, movies, we loved art and writing too, so I thought it would be a great idea and it would cut the cost of the bill. Not long after we found a place that was perfect for roommates. The only drawback was there was no fireplace. My old place had one, but that certainly wasn't a deal breaker, so we put down the payment and began to move in the following day as it was moved in ready. I should have known her mother was going to be a problem before we had even finished moving in though, but I just didn't realize just how much of a problem until later. I had brought along my mom, dad, sister and my sister's husband to help me move. I brought a washer and dryer, queen bed, couch, and kitchen table to the mix. After all, I had been on my own for a while, so I pretty much had the whole shebang, and all she had was her bedroom stuff, as this was her first time living away from home. Anyway, I had promised to buy pizza for everyone and already had some soda cooling in the fridge, so after moving day I could feed my helpful family. E's mom was there too, but she only helped bring in E's stuff, and once my couch was moved in, she just sat on it and watched as we did everything else. When E was helping us out, her mom griped that, "My daughter is not your bondswoman." She whined. E had offered to help but we didn't ask her make her do anything, besides this was her place too, I can promise she'll eat at our table sometime. Eventually everything was inside and I decided to order the pizza, and mom spoke again. "I want veggie supreme on my pizza," she said. I frowned at this. I'm okay with veggie pizza, but I know what the rest of my family likes, and I was only ordering 4 pizzas. No one here really liked all veggie pizza. I guess I could do one that is half veggie. I offered. "What? You mean I do all this work and I don't get my own pizza?" She was literally shrieking. "Of course not, we are all sharing these." Thankfully he intervened and offered to get her mom her own pizza, although I could hear grumbling the whole time that "Your precious daughter is so generous and I'm so selfish, BTW her," and he shared that pizza. I was exhausted by the time everyone had left and it was pretty late when I had finally set up at least half my bedroom, so I crashed and went to sleep. I didn't have work for the next 2 days, and it was a weekend so no college either, so I was looking into a nice long sleep and using the days to set things up and make our apartment a home. Unfortunately the next day I was rudely awakened by a loud banging on our front door. It was 5:30 a.m. I was about to get up, but I heard E answering it, and unsurprisingly it was E's mom. I knew E and her mother were close, and I think she secretly hated me for stealing her daughter when moving together was not my idea, but whatever. I grumbled but went back to sleep, waking up again a few hours later. I made myself something to eat, and not a moment later E and her mom walked in with bags of groceries. Apparently they had gone shopping in the earlier hours. As she sat the bags down she looked at me with that familiar tinge of disgust which I will become accustomed to. "Listen, we just spent over $100 at the store today getting things that you can both use. I expect at least half of what I bought to be reimbursed right now," she demanded. She made sure he was out of earshot before saying this to me. "Excuse me? You can't be serious, I'm not giving you any money. You went out shopping with E and bought a bunch of stuff that I had no say in whatsoever. If I went along I would have gotten these things myself, but it was a choice to buy things without at least consulting me, and now you want my money. No way," I said firmly. She was used to her daughter pretty much doing whatever she asked, and I'm fairly certain she was shocked that I talked back to her, consider she just opened and closed her mouth like a gasping fish. These encounters happened often, her mom coming over at ungodly hours, and coming over a lot too, at least 4 or 5 times a week. If she knew I was home she always tried to watch TV loudly to wake me, but E shut her down completely on doing that. E would stand up to her sometimes. She would often take E shopping and demanding money from me until I told E about it, and that finally stopped too. She always praised her daughter and thought of me as a selfish witch, but I couldn't care less about what she thought. I still remember one day I was in my bathroom, we had separate personal bathrooms, taking a shower before work, and when I walked out there was E's mother sitting on my bed, actually sitting on my work clothes I had laid out. Her arms folded across her chest. "We need to talk," she said snootily, but I went ballistic. "You crazy witch. Get the hell out of my room. I never invited you to ever come in here, I'm in a freaking towel for God's sake. You wanna talk?" She stood up about to speak, but I cut her off. "Get out." I screamed at her. She seemed pissed but left my room, and I had to re-iron my clothes since she apparently had no decency or sense of other privacy. When I saw her again I told her flat out if she ever went into my room again when I wasn't there and didn't invite her, I'd slap her into next week. I was done being anything but mean to this woman because she treated me with nothing but hatred, so why even try? Thankfully about 3 months later she mellowed a little. She stopped showing up so early and stopped stopping by so often, and when she did visit, she would make a snide comment about not feeling welcomed. But honestly, as far as I was concerned, she wasn't welcomed. She and E would leave as soon as she arrived. One weekend me and E held a small get-together, a few guys, a couple of girls, and of course me and E. We were having snacks and playing Guitar Hero, full-on mic, drums, guitars. It was a blast, and we were having a great time. All of a sudden a loud banging was on our front door, and I mentally groaned. Only E's mother knocked like that. E sighed and opened the door. As soon as her mother saw the group she gave this fake gasp in horror. "Oh my lord. Why are there boys over here? It's already 7 p.m. It's too late for them to be here," she said, extremely overreacting. "Keep in mind I'm 20 at this point, and E is 22. We are just having fun, mom. Besides, it's not a big deal, we have guys over all the time. These guys are our friends." E said, seeming to be just as confused as I was. She acted like our apartment was her house, and her rules were no boys allowed. "I expect this kind of behavior from her," her mom said, pointing at me accusingly. "I know she's nothing but an easy girl, and I know you are a good girl, and would never let these boys over without taking to me about it first," she said. I was pissed. Thankfully before I witch slapped this woman, E actually yelled at her mom, which probably had a more lasting effect than me assaulting her. "Mom. How dare you say such a thing about my best friend? She had been extremely patient with you about how rude and terrible you are whenever she's around. You are horrible to her, and yet she still has never asked you to get out of the house or to stop coming over. But to call her such a terrible thing, it's my turn. Get out," she said firmly. "Oh. You can't be serious, I'm your mother." She was whining now like she was ready to cry. "I'm serious, get out. Go home, and unless you call first, don't come over here. We won't be opening the door if you do. Also, next time you call I'm handing the phone directly to me, and if the first words out of your mouth are not a sincere apology, we won't be talking again," he said. "You can't make me apologize for the truth," she said, tears starting to fall. "Get out already. I swear I will call the police." He screamed at her, and her mom stormed out sobbing as she did so. I was so proud of E. I hugged her, and after we're all calmed down, our friends included, we resumed our fun Guitar Hero games. It took almost 3 weeks before finally, after hundreds of calls not being an apology to me, she finally relented and said she was sorry for all the name calling and being so rude toward me. I'm sure she didn't mean it, but I accepted the apology anyway. She was better after and did call before coming over, but she was still rude whenever she thought she could get away with it. When it was time to renew our lease, I had to tell E I couldn't live with her anymore, honestly, because she came with her mom, and I was kinda through with living with my parents, and much less living with hers. Thankfully she understood. I got my own place and she moved back home. We are still friends to this day and still close to one another, so thankfully this didn't ruin our relationship. Wow, I'm surprised you dealt with all of that. I would just leave that house and let to entitled which pay the house rent. E sounds like a great friend. Glad you two remain close. I live on the ground floor in a residential neighborhood. Children generally play in the road and are noisy, but it is part of life. The thing is that in 2011 there were no kids in the neighborhood. There would either be babies and toddlers who were too young, or the younger kids were now teens and they were too old for playing football or hide and seek in the road. One summer day I start hearing this terrible rumble outside. It is hot, and my window is open, so I look out and see a bunch of kids, between 9 to 13, playing loudly outside my house. I had never seen these kids before. I asked them who they were and where they lived, and one of them told me they lived 3 blocks over. I asked them if they had any friends here and they refused. So I told them to leave, which they did. Like I said, I can't complain when local kids play, it is their right. About 10 minutes later, the kids return. I see them and tell them to leave and not to come back. They leave, only to return a few minutes later with their entitled mother. The EM was in her late 30s, early 40s with very short shorts and a Karen haircut, even though I didn't know it was called that at the time. She was demanding to know who told her kids to leave. I look out the window and respond I did. The EM immediately goes on a tirade. How dare I talk to her kids, how dare I order them to leave, when she said they could play. On and on. I asked her where she lived, and she confirmed that they lived 3 blocks away. Why the hell don't your little brats play there then? I asked, to receive the answer, that me and my husband work all week, and are tired, and need some rest. We can't listen to the noise. I retort I work too, and I am also tired and am not obliged to listen to howling brats that don't even live here. She took offense to the word brats and threatened to sue me. I told her if you want to sue me, don't do it for calling her kids brats. I'd rather she sues me for insulting her. So back off. She states that she will call the police, to which I answer please do, I will tell them how you abandoned underage kids that were under your care. As you could guess, she didn't call the police. I never saw her or her monster kids again. Not a very exciting story, but it was my most memorable EP moment so far. The parents are responsible for their kids, I'd say back off my lawn too. If you made love and a kid pops out, you are obliged to them, not a stranger down the road. This happened many years ago, but I remember most of it because it was just so freaking stupid and I briefly wrote about it in my journal. I'm female and at the time was in my late 30s as were the rest of the group. I used to have a friend, she moved, so we lost touch, who had an uber witch of a younger sister, along with her rotten little 8-year-old, female crotch goblin. I mean, this kid was such an idiot, and her craphead mom enabled and indulged her. This kid would always take other people's stuff and either mess with it, break and eat it, or steal it, and would throw a fit if you stopped her, causing mommy to get in your face. Of course, Uber Witch never offered to replace anything. One night, a bunch of us, all women, this night, went to my friend's house for a horror movie marathon night. We did movie night too, 3 times a month, always with a different theme, and friends and spouses were welcome, and each of us was expected to bring a snack, drinks, alcohol was optional, and 1 or more movies, usually R-rated. We'd then pick, via mutual agreement, the 3 or 4 we liked best to watch. Suffice to say, young kids weren't allowed. We were well into our first movie and 2 bottles of wine when my friend's front door opens and her Uber witch walks in, unannounced, says she is going clubbing and tries to dump the kid on us because we were staying home anyway, so it shouldn't be a big deal. Friend is pissed and refused to watch the kid because, she later told us, A, she's a spoiled, destructive brat. B, Uber witch didn't call or ask, despite multiple warnings. C, this was her time to unwind with friends, not babysit her sister's rotten crotch fruit. B, none of the movies were remotely child-friendly, and she wasn't gonna alter her plans just because sis wanted to go clubbing. And E, did I mention the kid was a spoiled, destructive brat? She didn't say any of this, just gave a flat no, to which both Uber Witch and the kid threw a tantrum. Turned out she told her daughter she would be having a fun movie night with Auntie. As they argued, the kid took the opportunity to grab the remote and stared playing DVD. We paused when they let themselves in. It was the 1988 remake of The Blob and was mine, and stared watching. None of us stopped her because, honestly, we were too busy watching the sisters fight to notice. Ironically, we had paused it just before a particularly scary and gross scene where a little boy gets grabbed, pulled under the water, then comes up half melted and screaming before being dragged back under and devoured. Naturally the brat freaks out and starts crying, which alerts Uber Witch, who starts screaming at us for letting her kid watch. I'm paraphrasing here because this was a while ago, and I didn't write her words, are disgusting movies. Pretty sure she also dropped a couple of freaking bombs too, then demanded to know who it belonged to. Since I hated Uber Witch I got up off the couch. But surprisingly, so did another friend, who I'll call F1, a very buff, sporty girl who Uber Witch hated and actively feared. This was because they'd gotten into a fistfight the year prior, when Uber Witch groped F1's fiancé at a party, and no, she wasn't drunk, then slapped F1, who promptly beat the crap out of Uber Witch in front of everyone. F1 glared at her, then said, "It doesn't matter whose movie it is. What matters is you coming in here uninvited, giving your sister crap, not watching your freaking kid, then getting pissed off when your kid again touches crap that isn't hers and ends up scaring herself. Now I suggest you get your kid, turn around and go freaking home." A smart person would have done what F1 said. But Uber Witch was never particularly smart. Instead of leaving, she turns to me and starts getting in my face, probably figuring I wasn't gonna retaliate because she was smaller than me. She's my height, but much slimmer. She was right but also wrong. I have a temper, always have, but my temper will first manifest as sarcasm. Right up until I either reach my crap saturation point or the dumb picking the fight touches me, then it's game on. And by that point, I don't give a crap if you're smaller or bigger. So she got in my face, screaming a mishmash of oral flatulence I didn't really listen to, nor care about, except a sentence of two, we needed to care for her kid, what the hell. When she stopped to take a breath, I said, "Why is it our job to watch your kid? It's not like any of us pushed her out of our down organ." Uber Witch actually gasped, like someone in a graphic novel, and yelled in my face, "You have a son?" "Yes, I do," I replied, starting to get really mad. "But do you see him here?" "No. That's because I'm not a self-centered witch who'd bring him to an adults-only gathering or dump him on others without asking." This really set her off. And like any entitled moron who can't fight, she tried to slap me. Luckily she fights like a girl. Too bad for her, I don't. When Uber Witch pulled her arm back, people, never telegraph your blows, I moved slightly to the side, grabbed her arm, rotated it behind her back, grabbed her hair, then planted her face hard in the nearest wall, pinning her arm behind her back. Damn, it felt good. Uber Witch struggled and cursed, but I wasn't letting go. I told her she had three choices. She could take her kid and leave, quietly. I could kick her butt in front of her kid. I'd never do that, but she didn't know that, and by this point one of the others had taken the kid into the kitchen, but I was too busy to notice, or I could call the cops, have her arrested for assault, then the kid's her ex, who hated her because she cheated, to come pick the kid up. Uber Witch agreed to option 1, but then tried to get my friend to side with her once I released her because family. Friend responded by taking Uber Witch's keys, removing her house key, and telling Uber Witch that neither she nor her kid were welcome in her house and to please get the hell out. The look on Uber Witch's was one of utter shock, as if she'd discovered someone pissing in her cereal bowl. Uber Witch then looked at all of us for support. Why she looked at me for help, I just don't get, but we just glared at her. Realizing nobody would side with her, Uber Witch grabbed her kid, called us all jerks, especially me, and left, slamming the door. Friend apologized to us, no need, we all knew her sis was an idiot, then immediately called her parents, giving them the lowdown, and warning them that, unless they wanted to end up watching the brat all weekend, they'd better get in their car and go anywhere else. Uber Witch had done this before, many times, and to warn the other relatives as well. Uber Witch didn't get to go clubbing and soon after lost custody of the brat to her ex. Don't know what happened to her since and don't care. Update. Called an old friend and here's what she knew. Before moving, kid got better and stopped acting up after the ex got custody. Lost touch after they moved across the state. Nothing on Uber Witch. Such a satisfying takedown of this awful entitled mother. This was so damn good to read. Children deserve parents who help guide them instead of turning them into feral creatures and fighting anyone who tries to help the kid. Well guys, that's it for today. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider subscribing, and if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'm gonna link it right here. The story is about a man who thought he had rights to do everything he wanted, but was proven wrong. Check this out if you haven't, and I'll see you in my next video.